the Galactic Council's vast chamber buzzed with unease. Representatives of over 100 species filled the Grand Hall, each seated on floating platforms that encircled the central dais. The room's crystalline walls shimmered with bioluminescent colors, an indicator of the emotional state of its occupants. Tonight the council chamber pulsed with a murky orange, a universal signal of fear. On the central dais, High Arbiter Zinthar, a member of the ancient Vorsha species, stood motionless, her many tendrils twitching in agitation. Her voice, amplified by the chamber's telepathic resonators, filled the space like a slow wave. "Council members, we face a threat unlike any other," she said, her gaze sweeping the gathered assembly. "The humans have arrived." The declaration hung in the air, met with a collective ripple of psychic unease. It was not the first time humans had been discussed in this chamber, but never before had the council believed them capable of something so brazen. Though humans had joined the galactic community relatively recently, just a century ago, they had remained an enigma. They were primitive by many technological standards, reliant on brute engineering and sheer adaptability to overcome challenges. Yet, despite their perceived backwardness, humanity had thrived in ways that defied galactic logic. Their rapid expansion across inhospitable worlds, their refusal to adhere to council edicts, and their uncanny ability to innovate under pressure had turned them into a species that many quietly feared. Now, they had done the unthinkable. The human fleet had appeared on the borders of the core worlds, bypassing all detection arrays until the moment they arrived. The ships, a mismatched collection of sleek warcraft and hulking carriers, emitted energy signatures unlike anything seen before. While their exact capabilities remained unknown, the mere fact that humanity had brought their fleet so close to the heart of the galaxy was an act of defiance that could not be ignored. A holographic projection materialized above the dais, showing the Earth fleet in real time. The ships were positioned in perfect formation, like a constellation frozen in space. Their design was utilitarian and unadorned. Humanity had always favored function over aesthetics, but there was an unsettling symmetry to their arrangement. The fleet did not move, did not communicate. It simply hovered at the edge of the core worlds, silent and waiting. "What do they want?" demanded Representative Rel Thras, a serpentine being whose elongated form coiled anxiously around his platform. His species, the Kelari, were known for their sharp intellect and sharper tongues. "Is this a prelude to war?" Zinthar turned to address the question. "Their intentions are unclear. They have made no contact and ignored all attempts at communication. Our analysts are still deciphering the energy readings from their ships. What we do know is that these vessels are powered by technology we cannot comprehend. Their cores emit gravitational distortions that defy known physics." A collective murmur spread through the chamber. The galactic community prided itself on its technological superiority. For a species as young as humanity to develop something so advanced was unthinkable. "They're bluffing," growled General Tarkov, the council's military representative from the warlike Draconis race. His crimson scales gleamed under the chamber's light. "Humans have always relied on deception. Their fleet may appear formidable, but I guarantee it's a facade. We should mobilize our armada and strike them down before they can act." "And risk full-scale war?" interjected Councillor Merith, a luminescent being from the water-dwelling VR. Her voice was calm but firm, carrying the weight of her species' centuries of diplomacy. "We must understand their motives before we act. A preemptive strike could be exactly what they're trying to provoke, provocation or not. This is an act of aggression." Tarkov shot back. "If we show weakness now, humanity will only grow bolder." The debate spiraled into chaos, with voices overlapping and psychic projections clashing in the air. Zinthar raised a tendril, signaling for order. The chamber fell silent. "Enough," she said. "We must remain united in the face of this threat. I propose a temporary ceasefire and the deployment of observation drones to monitor the human fleet. Until we know more, we will not engage." The motion was met with reluctant agreement, though General Tarkov's platform remained ominously still. As the council session concluded, representatives dispersed, their thoughts heavy with uncertainty. Outside the chamber, word of the human fleet spread like wildfire across the galaxy, fueling both fear and fascination. News networks broadcast the holographic images of the Earth ships, accompanied by endless speculation. In the days that followed, The drones dispatched to study the fleet reported back with alarming findings. The ship's exteriors were layered with materials that absorbed scans, making it impossible to determine their internal structure. Attempts to penetrate their systems with hacking algorithms were met with instant failure, as if the ships anticipated and countered every move. The gravitational distortions surrounding the vessels grew stronger, creating ripples in nearby space-time that destabilized smaller satellites. The Council's Military Intelligence Division, known as the Spire, worked around the clock to uncover humanity's plans. Their analysts dug into records of human behavior, searching for patterns that might explain their sudden aggression. One chilling discovery emerged: humanity's history was a tapestry of conflict and survival. Unlike most species in the galaxy, which evolved in relatively stable environments, humans had thrived on a planet rife with natural disasters, scarce resources, and constant threats. This relentless adversity had forged a species uniquely adept at war, both physical and psychological. Humanity doesn't need to win a fight, one Spire analyst remarked during a classified briefing. They just need their enemies to believe they've already lost. Back in the council chamber, tensions reached a breaking point. General Tarkov, frustrated by the lack of action, delivered an impassioned speech, urging immediate retaliation. "These humans mock us with their silence," he thundered. "We must show them the price of defiance. If we wait too long, they will strike first, and we will regret our hesitation." But Zinthar, ever the voice of caution, held firm. "Patience is not weakness, General. If humanity has truly surpassed us in technology, then we must tread carefully. A misstep could doom us all." As the debate raged on, humanity's fleet remained motionless, an unyielding shadow on the horizon of the core worlds. The galaxy watched and waited, unaware that the true danger was not in the ships themselves, but in the minds of the species that had built them. The Galactic Council's drones circled the Earth fleet, their sleek frames invisible to most standard detection systems. But these were not standard ships, and the humans were not a standard opponent. Within hours, the drones began malfunctioning, their transmissions scrambled by an unknown interference. The Council's engineers, some of the brightest minds in the galaxy, worked tirelessly to decode the anomalies, but their efforts were in vain. The data that did come through painted an increasingly unsettling picture. The Earth fleet was not just technologically advanced, it was alive, in a way the Council had never encountered before. The disruption wasn't limited to the drones. Across the core worlds, strange phenomena began to ripple through the networked infrastructure that held the galaxy together. Communications lagged, seemingly random power outages struck key installations, and automated systems behaved unpredictably. At first, the Council's technicians dismissed these issues as coincidental. Core world systems were robust, designed to withstand everything from solar storms to full-scale cyber attacks. But as the disruption spread, it became clear that this was no random failure. Someone was targeting the very fabric of the Council's interconnected empire. The first direct attack occurred on Tyrannus Prime, the nerve center of the Council's military intelligence operations. Late one night, as the city's twin moons cast pale light over its towering spires, the planetary defense grid flickered and shut down. Security protocols should have activated instantly, but they remained eerily silent. By the time the engineers managed to reboot the system, a critical storage vault had been breached. The attackers took nothing but left behind a single message, encoded in the ancient language of Earth's earliest civilizations: observe and learn. When news of the breach reached the Council chamber, chaos erupted. General Tarkov slammed his clawed hand against his podium, his crimson scales shimmering with rage. "This is a declaration of war," he roared, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "They've infiltrated our most secure facilities. Are we to sit idly by while they dismantle us from within?" Zinthar raised a tendril to quiet the room, but even her calm demeanor betrayed the tension beneath. "We must understand the scope of their capabilities before we act. A hasty retaliation could play into their hands." But it wasn't just the military installations that were affected. Across the galaxy, critical civilian systems began to falter. Starship traffic control hubs miscalculated routes, leading to near collisions in crowded spaceways. Agricultural worlds reported widespread failures of their automated harvesting equipment, resulting in food shortages on several colonies. Even the Galactic Central Bank, a fortress of impenetrable algorithms, experienced anomalies that temporarily froze transactions across the core worlds. The disruptions were precise, surgical, and devastatingly effective. As the Council scrambled to respond, humanity's fleet remained unmoving, their silence an ever-present reminder of their looming threat. Diplomats sent waves of messages to Earth's representatives, but none were answered. The humans seemed content to watch, waiting as the galaxy unraveled around them. It was during this time that an unexpected pattern emerged. Analysts working for the Spire discovered that the disruptions weren't random. They followed a distinct sequence, targeting systems in a way that mirrored the human game of chess, a game long dismissed by other species as primitive. The realization sent shockwaves through the Council. If humanity was orchestrating these attacks like a chess master positioning their pieces, then the galaxy was already in checkmate. The Spire's director, an aged Kalari named Vri, convened an emergency meeting to discuss the findings. His serpentine body coiled tightly around his chair as he addressed the Council. "Humans are not attacking our systems," he began, his voice low and deliberate. "They are studying us. Each disruption is a test, a way to measure our responses and understand our weaknesses. They are learning from us even as they destabilize us." The revelation was met with a mixture of horror and disbelief. Counselor Mirith, always the voice of reason, tried to calm the room. "If they are studying us, then we must do the same. Surely there is something we can learn about them that will give us an advantage." But the Spire's analysts had already scoured every scrap of data on humanity, and what they found only deepened the mystery. Humans were unique in the galaxy, not just for their technological ingenuity but for their ability to adapt. They thrived in environments that would kill most species, and they had an uncanny knack for turning their own limitations into strengths. Their history was a litany of crises overcome, each one shaping them into a species that defied prediction. It was this unpredictability that now terrified the Council. Humanity's silence was not a sign of weakness, it was a strategy. By saying nothing, they forced the Council to act without knowing the rules of the game. Meanwhile, the disruptions grew worse. On Corrales 5, a key manufacturing hub, entire production lines ground to a halt when their automated systems began fabricating strange, useless objects instead of starship components. On Erithos, an agricultural moon, the soil itself was rendered infertile by a subtle alteration in the planetary terraforming grid. And on Tyrannus Prime, the Spire's analysts discovered a chilling truth: the humans had not infiltrated their systems using advanced technology. They had done it using simplicity. Earth systems, once mocked for their lack of sophistication, were impossible to predict because they defied the elegant logic that governed most galactic technology. By introducing chaotic variables into the Council's hyper-efficient networks, humanity had turned their greatest strength into a fatal weakness. As the Council grappled with the implications, Zinthar called an emergency session. The chamber, usually buzzing with the low hum of psychic communication, was eerily quiet as she took the dais. "Fellow Council members," she began, her voice heavy with gravitas. "We face an opponent unlike any we have encountered before. Humanity has shown us that war is not fought with ships or weapons alone. It is fought with ideas, with adaptability, and with the ability to see beyond the obvious." Her words resonated through the chamber, but they brought little comfort. The Council's unity was beginning to fracture. General Tarkov openly defied Zinthar's calls for caution, rallying a faction of warlike species to prepare for an attack on the Earth fleet. Counselor Mirith, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to broker a diplomatic solution, though her efforts seemed increasingly futile. As the galaxy teetered on the brink of collapse, humanity remained silent, their fleet an unyielding presence at the edge of the core worlds. But the Council knew one thing for certain: the humans were watching, waiting for the perfect moment to make their move. The Galactic Council's chamber was steeped in an uneasy silence, broken only by the occasional hum of distant machinery. The humans' fleet had not moved for weeks, yet its presence continued to loom over the galaxy like a specter. Tensions ran high as the Council, fractured and desperate, debated their next course of action. Even the most diplomatic species could no longer deny that humanity had driven them into a corner. But the human silence remained impenetrable, their true intentions as elusive as ever. Despite the growing internal conflict, General Tarkov's war faction had gained momentum. The Draconis general rallied dozens of systems to his cause, advocating for a preemptive strike. His fiery speeches, filled with promises of honor and victory, stirred fear and pride in equal measure. He claimed that humanity's silence was a bluff, a psychological tactic to weaken the Council's resolve. Many began to agree. After all, how could a species as young as humanity truly pose a threat to the ancient and advanced civilizations of the galaxy? Meanwhile, Zinthar and her allies worked tirelessly to maintain a fragile peace. She suspected that humanity's true power did not lie in their fleet but in their ability to manipulate the Council into tearing itself apart. If they acted hastily, they might fall into the humans' trap. But as the disruptions continued to escalate, her position grew increasingly precarious. Every day, more systems defected to Tarkov's side, and the Council's unity crumbled further. The breaking point came when the humans finally broke their silence. It was not through an ambassador or a broadcast, but through the Galactic Communications Network itself. A single message appeared simultaneously on every screen, terminal, and holoprojector across the core worlds. The words were simple, written in the universal language of the galaxy. "Do you understand now?" The council chamber erupted into chaos as the cryptic message was analyzed and debated. What did the humans mean? What were they trying to convey? General Tarkov, ever the opportunist, seized on the ambiguity to push his agenda. "They are mocking us," he roared, his voice echoing across the chamber. "They think we are cowards afraid to strike. Let us show them the strength of the council. Let us end this charade once and for all." But Zinthar, ever the voice of caution, raised her tendrils in defiance. "And what if that is exactly what they want, General? Humanity's every move has been calculated, deliberate. If we strike now, we play into their hands." "Then what do you propose?" Tarkov spat, his crimson scales glinting with fury. "That we sit here and wait for them to dismantle US piece by piece?" Zinthar paused, her tendrils curling inward as she considered her next words. "I propose that we listen." Her suggestion was met with stunned silence. Listen. To the humans who had humiliated them, who had brought the galaxy to its knees without firing a single shot. But Zinthar persisted. "Humanity's message is not one of war," she continued. "If they intended to destroy us, they would have done so already. Instead, they have forced us to confront our own weaknesses. Perhaps that is the lesson they wish to teach us." Reluctantly, the Council agreed to send a diplomatic envoy to the human fleet. It was a last-ditch effort to avert catastrophe, and the stakes had never been higher. A single ship, unarmed and marked with the Council's insignia of peace, approached the Earth fleet under the watchful eyes of every species in the galaxy. When the envoy arrived, they found the fleet still and silent, as if waiting for their arrival. The lead ship's docking bay opened, and the envoy was escorted inside by automated drones. There were no humans aboard, only a holographic projection of Earth itself, spinning slowly in the center of the chamber. A voice, calm and measured, emanated from the projection. "You have built an empire on control," the voice said. "You have relied on rigid systems and unyielding logic, believing them to be unassailable. But we have shown you the flaw in your perfection. True strength lies not in control, but in adaptability. In chaos." The envoy tried to respond, but the voice continued, cutting through their protests. "Your systems were never attacked. They were shown their own limitations. Your unity was never threatened by us, but by the fear within yourselves. This is your opportunity to grow, to evolve. Or you can choose to repeat the mistakes of the past." Before the envoy could ask for clarification, the holographic Earth dissolved, and the humans' fleet began to move. Slowly, methodically, the ships turned away from the core worlds and vanished into the void, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. The Council was left to grapple with the aftermath. Humanity's lesson had been brutal but effective. The disruptions ceased and systems gradually returned to normal, but the psychological scars remained. For the first time in millennia, the Council was forced to confront the fragility of their empire and the hubris that had blinded them to their own weaknesses. In the weeks that followed, Zinthar emerged as a unifying figure. She urged the Council to reform, to embrace the adaptability that humanity had demonstrated. The changes were slow and met with resistance, but they marked the beginning of a new era for the galaxy. Humanity had not just avoided war, they had reshaped the galaxy without firing a single shot. As for the humans, they faded back into the shadows of the galactic periphery. Their message had been delivered, and their silence returned. But the memory of their fleet and the lesson they had taught would haunt the galaxy for generations to come. The Council's final act was to inscribe humanity's words in the Hall of Records, a reminder of the day the galaxy learned the true meaning of power. Do you understand now?